I'm checking my screen to make sure that I don't freeze as I make this joke. But for once, Will, you might be the one who's freezing in the middle of the show. Are you safe from the storms? Do we have any tornadoes hitting you? What are we dealing with here in Arkansas?
Uh, Thunderstorms because the heat is, Mother Nature tries to kill us in a variety of ways here, just like everywhere.
Yeah, we have the heat down here. I don't know. We've got two from LA. How hot is it now?
I mean, it is in the low 80s today.
You poor baby. Are you okay?
But
It's like 99 here, and I'm like, ooh, it's finally cooling down a little.
yeah, but we had a cold front up until last week.
It was hard.
All right, guys, that's the last you're going to hear from Charlie Stickney and Stephen Prince tonight, because now I'm pissed off. You had a cold front in July? You lucky bastard.
It was like 70 to 75 up until like last week. It was horrible.
You know what?
I'm very hard.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, I was going to say it was actually there was a couple of days where it was like 68 in the morning.
It was.
So it was a little chilly there.
I'm going to forgive you, and I'm going to choose to forgive you for this reason. The ground opens up and swallows you where you live. So you deserve 70 degrees in July. So now we've got some Californians, we got a Floridian, we got a boy from Arkansas in the storms. Ed, my intrepid friend from across the pond, you are up at what time in England?
So it's currently 4:04 a.m., but I had to set like 5 alarms between 3 and 3:30 to make sure I was definitely up.
Yeah,
over here, the weather more tries to kill you by, I don't know, raining on you a lot. It's like it's trying to drown you, but also the drainage is too good for it to drown you. So the weather just keeps going. Keeps going. If
we had a trophy for the bravest part of Explain Yourself, you would win this week for getting up, and we will let you go first in case you want a quick nap afterwards. But
I'm good. I'm more the insomniac type, which although I admit I look worse than usual looking at myself on camera right now. So you're just gonna forgive the fact I look like
Will and I have not been models for a while, if ever, so we're going to forgive how anybody looks on camera, and we're going to get into a 30-second pitch on all of the campaigns, just kind of like if you were at a comic convention, how would you get somebody's attention to your book? And we had a couple moments before the show. We've got 2 creators going to San Diego Comic-Con next week. So, Stephen, this is your chance to warm up and practice a bit. If I was running past your booth, wait a second. Wait, they won't be going to movie panels. So maybe they will slowly walk by the comic booth because Ben Affleck isn't there. How would you get their attention?
They canceled so many panels and signings today. It's pretty nuts.
I'm sorry for the people going, but I'm so happy for you.
I'm happy for me too. It's simple. It's a matador who fights kaiju monsters. A post-apocalyptic kaiju throwdown about a matador who fights kaiju monsters to make a better world for his daughter. If matador fighting kaiju monsters doesn't do it for you, I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I mean, you need to find something inside.
Sometimes when the concept is that strong, just this is what it is. Deal with it. Charlie, I believe this is not about insomnia, how I slept my way through a freshman year.
No. It's about a young woman who's a freshman journalism student who uncovers what she thinks might be the scoop of a lifetime when she finds out one of her professors is running a high-end call girl service using some of the students at the school as escorts, and then she has to figure out as she starts befriending these students kind of what to do, as she can maybe ruin their lives. But is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? There's also a little bit of a mystery with a missing girl, and so she's trying to uncover that and maybe getting herself into some danger. I like to say it's a little bit of How to Get Away with Murder if it had a 3-way with The Girlfriend Experience and House of Cards.
Nice. And Ed,
all you need is 3-way.
Yeah.
Steven's here just to He just takes it and concentrates it
That's
and
right.
puts it out there.
Remake sold. That's
Yeah.
it.
Ed, so take us down in 30 seconds on Lobo, and then we will actually start on the deep dive with you. But if I was coming past you at I guess I'll just say, is it London MCM? Am I remembering that right?
Well done. That's good. Yeah. MCM Comic Con. Yeah, that's the big one here in the UK. So I'm in great company because I believe that comics should be able to tell any story. You should be able to not just recycle the same stuff over and over again. Mine's a superhero comic. It's actually the second comic in a series, but it's nicely standalone. So imagine a world where, the enough people are superpowered that you've got these superpowered criminals who are beginning to rise up and take over the criminal organizations. And imagine that you've got someone who wants to fight back against that, but does not have superpowers. Well, this is Lobo. He's not much of a tactician. He's really not very Batman. He's more the kind of person who will walk into the situation and then figure a way out of it on the fly, usually some combination of luck and, good fighting skills. That helps. Anyway, he got rather pasted in his last adventure, and in this adventure, he's gone to look for some help, which he finds in the form of a new ally. Unfortunately, his opponent, the Santa Muerte, is she's progressed her plans in the meantime. So it's a boiling point moment that you're going to step into, and you can very nicely step in media res.
So you've got a guy who jumps out of a plane and starts trying to build his parachute on the way down.
That is more or less exactly what Lobo is like. Yeah.
See, Steven, I can jump on your stuff too.
He'll succeed. He'll succeed in building that parachute on the way down. Nice. Even if it means that, actually, I just realized I could use my t-shirt as a parachute. And it works.
So we got Joey Galvez in the chat. Hey, Joey, how are you tonight? And Charlie McKelvey. It's elevator pitch. Yes, we always start with the elevator pitch because it's always going down on Explain Yourself. And, on Charlie's book more than others. But let's check your page out. Let's check out Lobo. And while I pull up the page, so how did you get your team together, and where did the concept come from on a creative standpoint?
So I've actually been working on comics for a little while now, about 10 years. Lobo is one of the characters I created quite early on. So it's worth saying that I come from a background of not making comics first. I started with tabletop role-playing games. And what I did is I created my first tabletop role-playing game, a sci-fi game. And one of my writing team on that said, "Hey, Ed, I do a lot of comics." A good friend of mine, shout out to Jonathan Lewis, Signade. He said, "Ed, I realize that you know nothing about comics, and you think all comics have to be superhero comics, but we should make some sci-fi comics." So we went ahead, we wrote some sci-fi comics. We've written 7 sci-fi comics to date. And then he said, "Ed, you know what? You could just make a superhero role-playing game." Sorry, get the light right there. That's Ira the Empowered, my superhero role-playing game. And from that, and I'm pretty sure this was his ulterior motive all along, we started making comics within that same universe. So the idea is that, the comics expand the world. They give you some more information about what some of the major tentpole characters are like. Some of them, Lobo is actually a favorite of one player in particular who often frequents games I run at role-playing conventions. So Lobo, he was about the 5th out the door, about that. That image you've got right there was actually the last image of the previous comic. He got defeated quite badly by his opponent because he went in with no real plan and just an expectation that he'd win, because normally he does. and he realized that that's not going to cut it this time. It's been working well so far, but he's going to need some help. He doesn't think he needs a plan. He just thinks he needs some help.
Okay.
This is Santa Muerte in her human mode. She's called Cora. And she's got the superpower that allows her to manipulate her bones. Not dissimilar to Bayonetta, if you're a fan of those games, but more the bones than the hair. So she likes the whole bone arms coming out of her back and skewering people and that sort of thing.
So
sorry.
This isn't makeup on the face. This is her bone. Like
this is her bone. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
She puts a lot of effort into being sort of visually impressive for the sake of intimidating various others involved. Lobo, as I sort of explained in the elevator pitch, he's quite audacious. He genuinely believes he can free the city. Well, it depends how much you believe her. But she explains that she also wants to rid the city of the drug cartels. She's just not an idiot in her mind. He's going out there and blowing stuff up and smashing people up with hammers and whatnot. And she's like, you're really dumb and this won't work. What you need to do if you want to rid the city of the drug cartels is get inside, get to the top, and then eliminate it from the inside. Now, he's not even sure whether to 100% believe that. Is she just saying what he would like to hear, or is she telling the truth? At the beginning of this comic, he's not 100% sure, but he's sort of on the side of, well, you're in the drug cartels and you're at the top, and not only that, you're trying to take over more. I'm kind of feeling no. I'm kind of feeling that I don't believe you.
Yeah.
But there are plenty more adventures to come, and some of their stories are covered in the role-playing game. So you get sort of some people already sort of have a glimpse of where it will go eventually. I never entirely resolved that story within the role-playing game about Lobo and I call her the Empress of Bones in the book, but she's not being referred to as that yet in the comics.
So I've got a question. It comes up, like, it's a Kickstarter campaign. I can get a comic. Could I, if I was a role player, could I pick up that role-playing book within the campaign as an add-on?
So it's not within the campaign as an add-on. I added it for a while and I found that it was considered a bit cloying, but there is a link to it on the Kickstarter to go to our store and get hold of it. You can get it digital, paperback or hardback. So you can grab it, absolutely. I think people felt like a bit more forced into it than I wanted them to be. You can enjoy the various aspects of this separately. we've done audio dramas, we've done comics, we've done the role-playing game, we've done what else have we done? Oh well, yeah. I am just putting the finishing touches on a movie in this universe. Just a short 15 minutes or so. So each of those should be able, it's part of my design philosophy that you should be able to enjoy everything independently. You don't need to see one thing to understand the others. You don't need to know everything about the universe in order to go in and read the comics or vice versa. And as a result, I don't want people to feel like they're forced to go and look for the other stuff. It's more like, oh, you're interested in more. I see a universe as like a house, right? So, if you want to play the role-playing game, you're going to open the door and walk in. And in theory, you could explore the entire huge mansion. In reality, you're going to explore, a few rooms on the first floor because that's how far it goes. I think of a comic like looking in a window, right? You can see a specific thing that's going on in that particular place at that particular time. Sure, yeah, great. You can have a really good story. You can have a lot of fun. An audio drama, I guess, to extend the metaphor, is listening up against the wall.
Yeah. So can I ask, as somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with role-playing games, are the writing muscles similar, or is it a different is a different muscle that you're using to create a role-playing game in this universe and a comic in this universe?
I think the main difference is only if you so the guys obviously already gave their elevator pitches, and for the most part they center around one main character. And obviously if you're in a role-playing game, you've got 6 people around the table, one person can't be the main. You just can't run it that way. Everyone else feels a bit slighted. So if you write a true ensemble cast, if you happen to be Joss Whedon and you write that stuff as standard, then yeah, it's pretty similar, but most people don't write that way because it is hard. I think there are therefore slightly different muscles. There's also when you're writing a role-playing game session, you don't need to fill in all of the story because the characters will do that for you. One of the things I like doing with role-playing games, if you don't mind me going off on that slight tangent, I
just want you to explain yourself.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I like running the same session again and again with different groups. You'll get one person who, finding a water form person in a pond. You go look for her and you try and talk her out, and then the next group, the big bear form, a druid who transforms, just pees in the pond. She's coming out, right? She's not staying in there. So you get the players to give you some fun plot points that sort of work at the table, and you're able to move the story on in a collaborative way rather than everything being on you as a writer. So when you're setting up a role-playing game session, you much more look at how do I enable action or enable creative problem solving here. Whereas when I'm writing comics, I do that first bit as well, but I also then go on and do, okay, well, and what's the character going to do in that situation? Character walks confidently into a building and decks the 2 security guards. This is from Lobo. Walks into the next room and accidentally realizes he walked into the cafeteria, which is absolutely full of people. And he's like, oh, damn it. So, it's how does he then resolve that situation? Well, that's on me. But if the characters had done that they might decide to talk their way out, or they might decide to try and fight their way out, or whatever. Stealth, pretend, oh yeah, wrong turn, don't worry about it, and just walk away. And that's then their choice rather than your choice as the writer, GM.
Right. That's interesting. So this is issue 2. If this goes on as long as you can write it, is there an end in sight, or what are you thinking?
So again, thanks to this, basically what I'm doing right now is I'm playing around in what I call Event 0. We haven't even started the story. So one of the things I think about role-playing games, and it reflects on the comic universe, is you should be able to... I started with my sci-fi game because I got sick and tired of having to buy Star Trek, Star Wars, Firefly, Farscape, you name it. All of the role-playing games I wanted to play, they were all separate games. They were all 50 quid books. It was really, really annoying. So what I said is, no. I'm going to do every subgenre of sci-fi, and you just dip into the history where you want to go to get your subgenre. So, you want to do Starship Troopers. Oh, you hop in here. Right, fine. I extended that to the Empowered universe. So I said, okay, look, let's start with villains try and recruit the heroes. Okay, fair enough. We've got powers emerging. Villains go, you should join us because... And then you go to, well, Atlantis attacks because Atlantis always attacks. So we give them a reason to attack, and then Atlantis invades. And then we've got, team-ups, and we've got bigger groups and bigger enemy groups and so on. And then you've got the old gods return and claim, the world, and the heroes are just kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Gods from mythology. And then we've got the Assassins Guild, and then we've got the Empowered Department where, the government takes over and they run all the Empowered. And then finally, we've got this giant space monster that's actually been coming the whole time, and that's the whole reason the villains exist. The reasons the villain the villain arrives from an alien world, and arrives from the alien world because that alien world is destroyed by this monster, and goes, right, well, how do I make the heroes as strong as possible? I make a really strong villain team because the heroes will always rise up to overcome those villains, right? So he can propose to as many heroes as he likes that they join them. They might say no, fine, whatever. But at the end of the day, his harbingers will then keep fighting them, keep pushing them harder, so that when this monster arrives, they're in the best possible position to fight. He's just sat there going, right, I'm the mastermind behind this. This is working. So, you know, even when his villains lose, he's not minding. Right. Now, Lobo and the Empress of Bones are not directly involved in this for the most part. Lobo is not empowered. The Empress of Bones is a criminal. Although she doesn't very much like an old god appearing and trying to take over her
street corner, basically.
I imagine you might expect. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's loads and loads and loads, and I've written so far. I'm coming up to 25 comics within Event 0, and there are 7 events, not including Event 0, so there are 8 in total.
You know, the only writer crazier than you is Charlie Stickney. One time he told me how long White Ash could go, and I just looked at him like, Will and I are dumb, but you're crazy.
I represent that remark. Wait, yeah.
Well, that is great. I want to wish you luck, and I hope you can hang with us. But really, honestly, if you want to go back to bed,
I'm here to hang. It's not a big deal. I'm up now.
So I brought up Charlie. So let's get into the steamy one. So this is issue 2 of How I Slept My Way Through freshman year. Is that what it is?
How I Slept My Way Through College and Other Tales of Freshman Year.
Gotcha.
I like to have a nice, as Stephen was saying. I mean, I guess 3-way would have been a shorter title, but I mean, like I'm trying to pay. I pay by the letter, and I want to spend as much as possible on the logo and title sequences.
I get you get your value through, Charlie. Anything that works.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just basically, is this the same artistic team, and how you told me about this, you know, for issue 1, but I don't remember what I did this morning. So who is the team behind this, and how did you get them together while I pull up the page?
To be fair, I don't remember what you did this morning either. I have people sending me reports, so, you know.
I do apologize. I remember sending you my whole journal, and that was like not very right.
It was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. So it's the team is, and I'm going to use, I think one of the wonderful things about working with international creators is you can access talent from all over the globe, and you can get to know them by email. The flip side is sometimes you just have your own idea of how you pronounce their name. And, so I am living with Emiliana Pina. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say she is wonderful. She's doing a bunch of stuff for Dynamite right now that she's been doing for the last year and a half. Derbala Kelly, who is a colorist out of Ireland. And so I've been working with the two of them on this series. When you were talking about like how long things can go, this is slated to be a closed series. It's about 12 issues long. But it can be broken into 2, tangible trades that each have their own kind of self-contained story, because it is a little bit of a mystery and it's a thriller. And like I was saying before, the quick pitch is it's about this young student, Stephanie Green, who comes to this high-end liberal arts Ivy League college and stumbles onto the fact that there may or may not be a professor who's running an escort service using some of the students as call girls. And so, the stuff I've done before, like White Ash, Galarian, the game, that it's high fantasy, it's grounded fantasy, it's science fiction. I kind of wanted to flex some different muscles. And, way back in the day, I came from the perspective of writing romantic comedies. And I really just love the interaction between different types of characters. And so, I think for a lot of us, college is that time when we go to figure out who we are. And, and some of that's sexual, some of that is professional, some of that is just growing into, what kind of things you want to be when you're an adult. And so, so I think that time in college is fascinating. And then just sort of adding a little bit of this, this flavor to it to make it more interesting and to create an adventure and a story that gets a chance for all of these women to interact. And like Ed was saying earlier, I mean, I think I pitch it as it's Stephanie's story, but as each issue kind of opens and it's focusing a little bit more on one of the different women, and we have a lot of time jumps, and we're going to see some flashbacks about who they were before, and so for me, it's really fun to be able to sort of flex those muscles of trying to lay out a big long mystery and see how it plays out and keep the readers engaged. And I do a lot of that with White Ash, with lots of twists and turns, but this is a different kind of thing. It's more it doesn't have the same kind of pace to it. We're not on an adventure story. There's not a monster that you have to fight. There's not like at the end of the thing, you're breathing a sigh of relief because everyone lived, and the characters got together. This is what piece of the puzzle is going to be unveiled in this episode, in this issue. What next piece of the character traits are going to come out. I mean, also going back to like Lost. I mean, I think for a lot of us who are writers now, when that show came on the air, it was very formative, just in the way that it broke up the narrative of characters, and you had your perception of who you thought they were, and then they would play with that perception, and then they kept twisting it. And so I think like some of those narrative tropes are really interesting, and so I was trying to do a lot with that as well.
So can I ask, as you're coming up with this concept, which came first, the set of characters or the mystery?
I would say the way I write is I go plot first, and so I will figure out the loose plot. And then I go back and start thinking about what characters are going to exist in that world best to serve that plot. Mm-hmm. And then as I develop the characters, that then affects where the plot's going to go. So it's kind of like back and forth. But initially, I usually have like a log line or an idea for like the world. And I'll loosely sort of, okay, it needs to have these parameters. Who are the people that best play with that? And then that affects. So I go back and forth. But I think the core is usually just that one idea that the concept of we're going to set it at this college, but let's think about these liaisons as ways to explore not really just different aspects of their personality. So even though there might be some sex in this is not a sex book, and I think that's kind of important. It's just as much like that sex is part of a human experience. It's not explicit. There's a little bit of nudity occasionally in the book, but that's, we don't have nude covers. It's not a gratuitous book. So if that's what you're looking for, that's not what we have.
So, you mentioned 12 issues, and I find this very annoying that you'll decide to do, oh, hey, this is a 32-page issue. Oh, I'm just going to make this issue 54 pages. Oh, why don't I go 60 on this one? How many pages are we actually talking about with this thing? I mean, your 12 issues would be somebody else's 24 potentially.
It could be. It could be. Like the first issue was 32 pages. This one was a little bit shorter. It was 24. I was trying to wrap it up a little bit.
That's like a 5-page anthology for you, a 24 pager.
Yeah, I know. It was a quick. I just kind of knocked that one out. Like in this. Okay, so if you scroll back for a second, I think this is, and I think one of the things that I love about your shows, you're seeing what different Kickstarter creators are doing. And ways of pitching their projects, the kind of projects people bring to Kickstarter. This was something that I tried this time, and it's been really successful. So, Ed, this is a cosplay cover featuring the women of the school as different characters from my other books.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and like the thought was that even if some of my other backers weren't fans of this kind of series, because like in terms of like the popularity, like my other series are a lot more popular, and that's kind of what you expect. You have some things that are big hits, some things that attract a smaller crowd. But I thought a way of getting more eyes on this was to kind of bring those characters into this universe in a way that felt organic and understandable. So one of the women is actually a comic book fan. Galarian is her favorite. There's actually a little bit in the book where she goes into a comic book shop, and and some of my friends will see that their books are actually featured in the background of that comic book shop. So like that's,
Everyone watching is now just going, "Oh God, I hope it's me. I hope it's me." We'll find out. We'll find out.
We'll find. Yeah, like it was one of those things where I asked a couple of people if they wanted to put some things in, and then I gave it to the artist and let her play with as she felt things that would fit the background. But I think it's always good for us to try to find ways to engage our audiences and see if we can get kind of ways to energize them from campaign to campaign. Because especially for those of us who have done this a lot
and are going from series to series to series as opposed to issue within a series, right?
But even for you, Kevin, when you're doing Tart, I think it's about ways to keep the people who read it engaged and bring in new people, right? And so like we've done, we have all done the thing where we do the cross promos with other people, and then I think sometimes that got a little bit too bloated and it just became white noise. I think the other thing I try to do is I'm doing now is, because I have all these other series, I will pick one of my other series and I'm giving away the first issue of that as one of the base rewards with any campaign I do, to hopefully get them, people to read it and to be hooked, but also add a little bit more value to base here.
So, Charlie, you've worked with a lot of.
I'm very tell this story, but it's also about trying to find the synergy to attract as many of my backers to this as possible, and also bring in new eyes that in turn I can then bring over to White Ash and Glarian in the game.
Right.
Yeah, and you worked with a lot of artists on these doing variant covers, but kind of the constant that we have is Connor. I mean, that's kind of a fairy tale that I just love. I mean, can you tell us how you met Connor? I mean, I've
Sure.
heard the story, but I think the readers would, the listeners would like to hear it too.
Sure. And for anyone who's Connor is the letterer. He's also my partner in White Ash. He is the art director of White Ash Comics. So like everything that I do, I do in concert with him. And when I kind of came to comics about 6 or 7 years ago, it was more about 7 years ago. And I'd like to say came to or came back to, because when I was in high school, I was planning to go into comics. When I was in college, I was planning to go into comics, and then kind of got shifted into film, and then got a job offer in Los Angeles. And so it sort of took me about 20 years to get back to comics. And I've been having a ball the last 7 years. But right off the bat, like when I was getting White Ash started, I put an ad out on, I think it was Reddit. And Connor reached out to me, and Connor had gone to the School of Visual Design. He had kind of like decided, rather than trying to make it as a comic book artist, he was going to get a real job. And so he became the in-house graphic designer at the UN in New York. And so he was doing that for his day job, which was incredible. And then he tried the Mark Millar talent search, and he was the winner for the very first time they did it. But they paired him with a good colorist, but it wasn't a colorist who was a fit. And I think all of us know how trying to find the right colorist to work with the right artist can be very dicey. And it just wasn't a good match, and it didn't showcase what he did. And so he just kind of faded off. And then he found me, and we started doing White Ash. And he is just, he is incredibly talented. He's incredibly kind. I love working with him. I love working with everyone. I've been very fortunate with him, or with Romina Mornelli, with Triona Farrell, who does the colors on the game. Finn Cram. I mean, like I have an incredible team. But Connor's actually coming out this Wednesday of San Diego Comic-Con is his cover for The Walking Dead. He's doing a 6-issue series of connecting variant covers for The Walking Dead. And I feel like Kirkman's going to try to poach him. And so, Stephen, if you see me rolling on the floor in a bare-knuckled fight with Kirkman, it's probably over Connor.
You're not going to fight him. You'll fight his security. He can afford like 6 dudes, Charlie. I hate to tell you.
I don't know. Maybe if you make a flying leap, like when you see a moment, as soon as the security parts, just go.
I'm going to see Charlie on TMZ looking like poor Britney Spears trying to say hello to a basketball player.
Yeah, but I would say, in addition to Connor, I have been very fortunate. I mean, Kevin, you and I met each other roughly around the time when I first started White Ash. I might even reached out to you before that. Stephen, I mean, you being in the LA scene, Will, like Kickstarter is such a community, and I just say to anyone who's watching, who is getting into Kickstarter, who's starting to do it, embrace the people around you, back their books. They are so, like the independent creator scene, they've got each other's back, and they made it very easy for me to enjoy doing this. And I try to do the same. Ed, it looks like you have some great books. Stephen does a wonderful book. So if anyone's watching these, please back both of their books right now.
Yeah. I want to ask one more question about your team, and then we are going to get to Monster Matador, because I love people. If you haven't seen the art in Monster Matador, we're getting there, and you just give me a second. But there's one person on the team that didn't come up, and I went past it.
I'm sorry.
Is Nicole magic? Is she magic? Because in independent comics, I do not believe there is another editor with more great comic books that she works on. Every book she edits is an A to an A+. And is she magic? That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, as you can see from her avatar, she looks a little bit like a leprechaun, right? I mean, so, I leave you to be the judge about whether she's magic or not. But I will say this, she's very good at what she does. And as a creator who has a very strong vision, and I have a very clear idea of what I'm doing, I am not going to put up with notes that are not useful. And so I can say that she's really good at giving useful notes and improving what you do. And I think that's what you want from an editor, is to make what you do better. And she does that. I mean, and I also, I adore her as a person. So like there's that's a separate part of it. But I think just like purely on a professional level, she's very good at what she does. So if you're looking for an editor, reach out.
And you can find Road Trip to Hell too, which is a book she doesn't edit but writes, which is
really funny,
pretty darn fabulous too. So
beautiful art, really funny.
Now, before we get to Monster Matador, I want you to know that Charlie McElvey says that he will fight on your behalf, and he is 6'3" and 185 pounds. So the first part, he's got reach, and I hope speed.
It sounds like he just wants a badge to San Diego.
Yeah.
Oh, Kirkman's tall. I don't know anything about Kirkman.
I think so. I think he's about 6 foot or something. He's a big guy.
All right. I mean,
so am I.
So Charlie go high.
So am
Charlie
I, like
go
6'5", right? You can't tell him.
Yeah, Charlie's got his stilts on. He's 6'5".
4 foot stilts.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of how tall Charlie Stigney is, Monster Matador, he fights kaiju. I don't know if that is actually a segue, but we're going with it. I'm going to pull it up, and let's check out Monster Matador. Where is our Matador going this chapter?
All right. So in this new series, it's called Once Upon Some Monsters in Mexico. And the Matador returns home to Mexico after the events of Volume 1 to be reunited with his daughter. And of course, a new monster strikes, the Mega Racha, in Mexico City. And the Matador goes off to fight it. He has to face his greatest fear. He's joined by a team of monster fighting luchadors, which you see here. And it opens up a whole new kind of story in the Matador universe, where he's going to kind of go up against these enemies that are the toughest ones he's ever kind of had to before. And it's going to change his world forever. If the first volume was about building the Matador up and showing everybody what he can do, this is kind of like our Empire Strikes Back. This is really where we're going to kind of break him down, put him through the ringer, and he may or may not come out on the other end. So
So I popped up here because I saw a name I recognized. An off the wall, over the top, and totally insane monster mashup. Take the kaiju by the horns and order Monster Matador today. David Pipos, Savage Avengers, the OZ. I wanted to pop. Basically, there's almost nobody. There might be people as good as David at the publicity game, but I don't think there's anybody better. So I wanted to say what he says.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and I gotta tell you, I guarantee you by the end of Comic-Con, everybody's going to be talking about Dave Pepos. So
yeah. I like to hear that. That feels like there might be some things said, and I am excited to hear what might be said.
If anybody's been following him, he's just been kicking ass, and
and
he's also going to be fighting, Kirkman. On my
he will. That's right. They're going to be fighting over beards. Their beards,
It'd be super interesting. Is Kirkman going to be there? Like, is he part of the Writers Guild now, or what? I mean, can he show up? I don't know.
Well, he's gonna. If he doesn't, it's because he's scared of Charlie.
Yeah, that is what we are going to say. So this means nothing at all. But I mean, could he go and say, I want to talk about The Walking Dead, the comic, and then just talk about all the plots that were adapted into the show? Would that skirt the rules, or would he get called on that? I don't know. It doesn't matter at all. But the art in this comic book is so unique and so incredible. This is the same artist, correct?
Yeah, Fabio Alves, and our colorist is Alex Ziaf. And speaking about, like Charlie said, how to pronounce the names of our
we just take our best guesses on the show. It's
collaborators. It's funny. It's funny with
my
Fabio
guys are mad Wisner Bruto, so I feel your pain, and I'm pretty sure I mangle his name every time I say it.
That's funny. I didn't know Fabio didn't speak English until we did the third issue we were working on.
Oh, he just translated to you?
And the translation was pretty good, so it never, and he would sometimes pages, the layouts would come in, I'd be like, where are you even getting this from? Like, and there was one page he sent that had nothing to do with what I wrote, and I was like, we need to talk, and he's like, I don't speak English. Like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense, so I had to just adapt the way I wrote my scripts, because I tend to write pretty loose in how I talk. And usually you're using, just regular everyday language that doesn't really translate.
Yeah, jargon is, if you're working with someone where English is not the first language,
it gets tricky.
I have messed that up so often.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, like, I had to learn Spanish to write the rest of my scripts.
Well, he speaks. I can do Spanish. He speaks Portuguese, so.
Well, you should do it in Spanish, just for fun.
You guys can meet in the middle. Just meet in the middle.
Yeah. Fun.
So, and this story is kind of fun. We introduce these characters who's this father and son, and they run kind of a parallel story into this, and they're trying to save their the wife and mother as the monster attacks, and their stories kind of intersect with the Matador in this. So, and right here is the monster, the Mega Racha.
Nice.
And this is what the Matador's going to have to go up against in this book.
But you mentioned in volume, you mentioned volume 1. Was it 4 issues? Is that right?
It was 3 issues of Tango of the Matadors, a 65-page one-shot called Afripocalypse, and then in the trade paperback and hardcover, there's a bonus 10-page story. So this is art from
How many issues will I guess this is volume 2? So how many issues do you have volume 2 to go?
So volume 2 will be about 4 issues,
okay,
and then volume 3 be about 3 to 4 issues. We've kind of taken the Hellboy model, which is kind of miniseries,
Mhm.
So they can all be read on their own, but at the same time, there's a larger mythology that it'll all connect to. This is our Burt Reynolds homage variant cover.
Burt
There's a
Reynolds
lot of
is
boobs.
always welcome on
Yeah,
this show.
yeah. There's a lot of boob covers on Kickstarter, and I kind of had to go a different direction. And we
I
also
think
did,
it's awesome.
and we also did a Ghostbusters homage.
Nice.
So we've got, the paperback is 184, I think, 188 page collection. We've got a limited edition hardcover that's signed by myself, Fabio, and Alex.
Wow.
We sent the book plates to Mexico, to Brazil. We've got the shot glass, which is in hand. We'll have them in San Diego too. We'll have T-shirts this time.
Now, if someone bought the shot glass from you at the show, would it come with a special gift that happened to be at the booth?
No, if anything gets given away at the booth in San Diego, it'll get given away with the Kickstarter too.
All right.
I
think Kevin.
Conventions don't let you do that. They stop
What's that?
you. It's terrible. The conventions don't let you.
Oh,
give
I
away
understand.
drink. It's awful.
Yeah.
say
Kickstarter
that.
doesn't either, though. No alcohol. If you use any word like alcohol, beer, whatever, you'll get flagged, and they'll. Because I had my first campaign, I had tart pint glasses, and I put tart pint beer glasses, and they're like, you can't have any alcohol. I'm like, there's not going to be any. I'm not sending liquid through the mail, guys.
Is that right? Wow.
At the beginning, that was one of the rules. Nothing that had to do with alcohol. Now, I can't tell you if that's been changed because I haven't put the pint glasses on any longer. Not for that reason, but because I almost lost my ass in shipping that first campaign. Thank God only 3 people bought it because I probably would have gone bankrupt.
That's why I did a shot glass. It's much lighter.
Yeah.
On that list of taboo words, because I've had several of my campaigns deemed no good. You need to like put them back in again. You can't say like pre-order or sales. You can't do anything where you're sort of alluding to the fact that you're selling something on Kickstarter. Because if it actually, and even though that's what the majority of us may be doing, pre-orders or selling books that are done or selling things that we know we're going to make, it violates their nonprofit status if it's seen as them selling things. So don't ever put pre-orders on in your campaign because they will flag that. Just a little FYI.
That's interesting.
Well, speaking of Kickstarter, Charlie, I know we chat quite a bit, and you posted a link to a story about indie comics on Kickstarter, and the trend is just through the roof. I mean, it's. I saw another article, I think, and one of the people were quoted, is the direct market dead and has been a zombie for the last 3 years, and we just didn't notice it because it was being a zombie. I mean, Kickstarter really has, and I don't want to just pick on Kickstarter. Kickstarter, other crowdfunding platforms like Crowdfunder and BackerKit and Zoop and all of those other guys have really kind of changed the game for us. I mean, it's made a lot of things possible for a lot of creators that, we're seeing lots of stories from creators that probably wouldn't have had a voice if it weren't for crowdfunding.
And
right?
I'm one of them. I've
Me
actually
too.
funded 80 Kickstarter projects-ish so far. Everything behind me is a book I've printed or a card game that wouldn't have been printed if it wasn't for Kickstarter. Just wouldn't exist.
Well, I think more than that too. I think Charlie, you've mentioned this. I think in your campaigns or elsewhere, and it's one of the reasons why I went to Kickstarter. If you've been watching kind of indie launches, they tend to run 4 issues, 6 issues, and they don't come back. A lot of books get cut short. And Charlie, I know has a longer plan for White Ash. You kind of roll the dice, if you're going with a company, if you're going to be able to finish your story. But with Kickstarter, you're rolling the dice on yourself. And if you're successful, you can not only get to finish your story, but you have a lot more control over how you want to tell it and how you get it out there.
Well,
And
I also
I think, yeah.
No,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Troy.
I was going to say,
I just. Oh, sorry, but I think,
Okay,
but I think that's one of the reasons you're starting to see a lot of indie books thrive and audiences moving there. Charlie McElvey, who's watching the show, he's got Spider Squirrel right now, and he's, I'm doing an update tomorrow, and I called him the Stan Lee of Kickstarter because he's building out his own universe of books, which he wouldn't be able to do that necessarily in the direct market.
Mm-hmm.
But now he can build a brand and build an audience and build a foundation, like Charlie did with White Ash, and then bring it into the direct market, and have the best of both worlds. So,
and it's
he's
weird.
also
Kickstarter, you get to build your audience through issues 2. Well, it really doesn't start until you get 3rd, 4th, 5th installment.
Yeah.
But the direct market, issue 1 sells this much, issue 2 sells that much, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's for a series that's doing well. Whereas on Kickstarter, issue 1 does this, issue 2 does this, 3, 4, 5, 6. If it's a good book, you actually build an audience on Kickstarter and can find more and add readers as you go on at this point. And it's thrilling to be able to do that when the direct market at this point seems to be the opposite.
Yeah. Charlie would probably be a good person for the other Charlie. Tall Charlie would be a good person for your show as well, I think, because he's got a campaign live right now.
But you know what? Last week, Ed sent me a message and said, "Hey, you got any room?" And I said, "Yes." And that's how you get on the show, people. So if you ask, the answer will probably be yes.
I had my people contact you this time,
which
is even better.
Having people helps, but it is not. It's not. It's not a prerequisite.
No, I felt
we can have people. Why didn't I get the memo?
I was wondering the same exact thing. Like, oh, I thought you had to do it all yourself, or it doesn't count.
Yeah. I will sort of add to Kickstarter, though, has been going through an evolution. When it first came, it was doing all kinds of things. Then comic book creators found it, and in the early days, it was people who couldn't get anywhere else, right? You couldn't get a publishing deal, so you came to Kickstarter. And the way the direct market's been going lately, a lot of creators who can get direct market deals would rather be on Kickstarter because they can make more money. And so that there has definitely been in the last 2 to 3 years a shift in terms of the public perception and the industry's perception of what Kickstarter is. And it's been continually legitimized by the big companies coming in, and now Boom and Skybound and Dynamite, there's most of the publishers are coming here and making a lot of money. But I think when you saw the ad listing for the director of comic outreach going for Kickstarter, you had the industry publications talking about how this was going to be the hottest, most important job in comics going forward. And I think that's a really interesting thing when you have The Beat and when you have Sketched and the industry magazines with the Pulse are saying this is important for comics. It's a whole paradigm shift that hadn't happened before. And so that combined with the fact that Kickstarter is taking the next step, and I know this was something that they were looking to do for a while, but having a booth at San Diego where they can start hosting creators, they can hopefully start giving some of that convention access to creators who couldn't maybe afford to have a booth at San Diego. And if they do it at New York Comic Con later this year, and start, again, democratizing these conventions, because Kickstarter is a big enough gorilla that they're going to be able to get in there. And so, giving that space to creators, a way for creators to get in, to at least have a table that they can sign at. I think there's a big shift that's going on, and I know Zoop is doing it too. They have a table at San Diego, but I'm signing at the Kickstarter booth. They put out a big press release. I didn't have to do that kind of work for myself. They're doing it for creators. So I think they really understand that they are the future of independent comics for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that should be a lot of fun. I don't know. I want you to at least share on Twitter or Facebook or Dweezil Bob or whatever the social media we're on next week, how that feels. Like, do you feel like it's another day at a con? Do you feel real? I can't wait to hear how that feels signing at the Kickstarter booth.
Yeah, I will probably tweet it out. I feel much cooler than Kevin Joseph because I'm right here signing at the Kickstarter booth right now. He wanted me to tweet out a selfie, so here you go.
And you will be, and I will have to just retweet that with That's not a situation that I can win this weekend.
but I kid Kevin because going back to the whole communal aspect of Kickstarter, Kevin was really instrumental in me sort of getting a start in a lot of different things. So I really appreciate him and so many other creators who have helped each other out on Kickstarter. And I love that Kickstarter is expanding what they do, and so hopefully we can all embrace each other and pick each other up in different places.
I like to dig at you because everybody likes you, and there's a reason everybody likes you. So that's the reason I've got to hit you and Clay Adams every chance I can get, because you're just so damn likable that I gotta attack you.
I don't have this issue.
Maybe next time, Ed. I just met you. I haven't fallen in love yet, but I do have a crush.
And he gives big hugs.
Yes. Before we get out of here, and I do want to actually continue that Kickstarter thing, but our buddy John Westoff is doing a campaign for issue 4 of Drumsticks of Doom, and Will and I have found that the time we can do this show is very, very late, and not everyone can join us. And I just wanted to share Drumsticks of Doom pretty quickly, because it's a book that's worth checking out. I think worth backing, but definitely worth checking out. It is basically a retelling of the history of the Earth. If instead of the Beatles becoming the biggest band of all time, it's Judas Priest. And the sheer power of their rock and roll actually changes the fabric of reality and kind of brings demons into reality. And John's just a hilarious, cool dude. And I just wanted to make sure, because he's not going to join us this late at night, and it's Will and I's fault that it's this late. So I just wanted to share the campaign and say, if you like rock and roll and demons and just humor, check this campaign out. He's got 1,200 to go and 5 days. So it is so doable. But I wanted to make sure people checked out Drumsticks of Doom, and you can get all 4 issues in it. And so don't sleep on this one, guys. All right.
Awesome. So
I will say, Ed, to that point of it being not too late, it's very convenient for at least for me. I don't want to speak for Steven the time that you guys do it, because the kids are asleep. It's not too late, so keep it. This is like the best time. And I know it's very convenient for you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the kids are asleep. The entire neighborhood's asleep. I get to be down alarm clock at 3 a.m. I love it.
So Ed
sent, every week from now on.
Yeah, Ed sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, do you have a spot?" And I looked at it. I'm like, "Yeah, I got a spot." And so we had just met. So I went to his Facebook page to friend him so that we could message each other more easily. And I saw England, and I said, "I'm like, hey, love to have you, but 99.9% of the people from Europe ditch me when I tell them what time." And he's like, "No, I'll get up. I'll be there." So God bless you, man. That's commitment to the bit right there.
Well, you see, the thing is that we English, we're so small in number relative to you. We have no choice but to ensure we're represented on this kind of show, right? So we all go the extra mile so that the small number of us, so that we appear. I'm very disappointed in that 99.9% of other, well, any of them who are English anyway.
Yeah, they might be from the bad European countries. I'll let you say what they are. I'm not saying. But I will say this.
Countries at all. They're all great.
I just
in their
want to
own
say
way.
this: my artist is French, so don't you mess with French.
Oh well, yeah, that would be my go-to, being English,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just gonna go with they're all great. They're all great in their own way. They have their own character, and they're all awesome.
Yeah.
But if they can't get up for this show,
Yeah.
they're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, a quick question for kind of everyone here around shipping. I know Charlie does some really cool stuff with shipping around White Ash with the White Ash boxes. I mean, those are spectacular. Stephen, you've you've done some hardcovers, you've done single issues, and Ed, you've done 80 campaigns. I mean, from a standpoint of fulfillment, you're in England. Are most of your shipments in England? Do you have a lot of people from the USA?
Most of them are in the US.
Wow. That's
in fact, I ended up having to ship 6.6 kilograms. That's 14, 15 pounds of books to some people for one of my recent campaigns. That gets pricey.
Wow.
That gets pricey.
Yeah, that's
I
gotta
can
be
imagine. So I mean, I know Charlie,
So an interesting point on that front. My experience is that most people will pay something like 20% of what the pledge was for shipping without having too much of a problem. Once you're going much more than that, you start ending up in problems where they're going, whoa, really? Whoa, that's really, really expensive.
Yeah.
And as a result, you gotta figure out a way of doing it. I tried a fulfillment service, and they were charlatans who did half the amount of work I did for the same price. I'm very fortunate in that one of my longtime partners in this is based in the US. So what I do is I send a big box over to him. He then sends it out from there. So that sort of gets around it. It does cost. It costs like, I don't know, $50, $60, $70, $100 maybe to get that box over there. But once it's there, he can then send it out relatively cheaply via the system you guys have in the US.
Well, and Charlie, I know you clued a bunch of us into that pirate ship
Simple
international
export, right?
shipping. Yeah, the export rate, which was like half. I mean, that alone saved me in the last 2 or 3 campaigns probably hundreds of dollars in shipping internationally.
It's really good until you go over 3 pounds 15.9 ounces. It's a service over here, and they don't have it in England, but it's basically like they group ship a bunch of things to a different country, and then they have a fulfillment service that sends it out. So compared to the regular,
similar to what I'm doing manually,
but it's a legitimate company versus the charlatans that you had. And like if you're a Kickstarter creator and you're not using them for international shipping, I think you're probably shorting yourself. I mean, Stephen, do you use Pirate Ship as well?
For international, yeah.
So,
what do you use domestically then?
The export, yeah. I just do Endicia. I mean, I should shift it over, but I was already paying for Endicia, and then on the last one I used Pirate Ship for international. It's just
the only thing Endicia has that
great,
Pirate Ship doesn't is the first class, right?
Yeah. I shipped a lot in first class. That's why.
Okay. I mean, I used to have Endicia, but it's still $16 a month, right?
I know, yeah, and I keep forgetting to cancel it, so I feel like I have to use it. But
oh yeah, I had about two.
So that's why I kind of like was going between the two.
I think I had 3 campaigns that way before I finally did Pirate Ship, because I was like, screw it. I paid the last 6 months and didn't use it. Now I have to get my money's worth. So I've been there and I've done that.
Yeah. They get.
Like
I mean, there's so many things that you subscribe to, and I'm just like, oh shit, I forgot that's still charging.
I was gonna say, Ed,
speaking of, sorry, Charlie.
I was just gonna say, I think it's even more like if you're not using a service, it's even more expensive over here to ship to Europe than it is to ship from Europe. Because I think if you're using like just standard domestic, it's like $60 for a 3-pound package.
Yeah, it's insane.
To go to England, which is nuts.
Yeah.
What's really fun is when you go over 4 pounds, trying to figure out how to get it. So you're unpacking it. Now you're taking out like, okay, I used newspaper this time.
Can I tell you, you know how like, you know, they have tabs sometimes on the side. I've ripped off tabs. I've ripped off like lining in the thing. I've done like just to get ounces.
Yeah,
know?
I pulled the Gemini
crazy.
mailer, the middle part. I've cut that out to try to get down.
Yeah, I've done stuff like, you know, I rip pages out of the book. It's not kidding.
I wanted to talk to you about that.
Most people hardly notice.
Just the back pages, they never get there.
I've got a question. Does that mean that you write so well that pages could be missing and the story's still told, or do you write badly that people don't notice pages are gone?
It's probably somewhere in between. This is a great cliffhanger. Wow.
The things we do to just try to stay ahead of the game. I mean, I really have unpacked things, and I've had it bubble wrapped, and I've taken like 70% of the bubble wrap off, and then you reweigh it, and you're still not there, and you're okay. Well, every one of my books was bagged and board, and then you take, you know, like you double bag and board,
double front and back them,
so you can pull out like 4 bags and boards, and those things are like less than an ounce, so it's tough. But it's fun. It's not fun, but it's sort of fun to think back later, like what you just did.
But it's literally an ounce can be the difference sometimes of like $5, depending on where you're going over. I mean, or more than that. It's kind of nuts. Like,
yeah.
You know, the pirate ship simple export rate is awesome, and thanks again, Charlie. That seriously has saved me tons of money. But I've, from a domestic standpoint, you know, shipping in the U.S., I am a big fan of the integration that ShipStation has with BackerKit, because I can just click a button, it'll go create all those packages, and then once I print the labels, I click refresh in BackerKit, and it says, "Oh, those guys are all shipped, done," and I'm like, awesome! It's just magic. I love it so much.
I handwrite everything because I'm a masochist.
wow.
You are indeed, sir. Indeed.
Okay, so the biggest reason I was happy to pay $15.95 a month for Indicia was to no longer have to handwrite the the customs forms, because writing 5 pages of the custom forms over and over and over again, and I have terrible handwriting.
So in this country, we just have a label about this size, and you have to write your name and your address and how much it's worth, and that's it.
Okay,
basically.
so the way it works in the United States is there's 5 pages you have to give: blood, semen, and feces. You
forgot the note from your mom. You need a note from your mom too.
Yes. It is absolute torture to handwrite those things. It is insane. It's 3 to 5 minutes for every form, and so if you got like 25 things, and then you take it to the post office, and you walk in, and you're like one of like 3 people, and you walk up to the clerk, and you've got like 12, you know, international packages. And then the clerk looks at you and the packages, realizes they're all international. And by the time you leave, there's, I mean, honestly, 15 to 25 people behind you. Yeah. So, and your neck is burning because they're just staring at you. You don't look back. And as you walk out, you walk with your head down.
Yeah. So in this country, because the customs labels, right? So you can do them at the same speed as they can do proof of postage. So they'll like type in the first line of the address and the zip code or whatever to go to the US, and they'll print that on the receipt for you so you can prove you posted it. That way it's insured. Blah blah blah. Cool, awesome. I've walked in with 40 packages before and had the clerk look at me and go, "I'm not doing that." And I literally had to pull the you're refusing me service right now. That's what's going on. The manager came out and was like, no, it's fine. I'll do it. Like that has happened to me. Like someone has literally just gone, I'm not doing that.
So over here, the clerk just looks at you and them is like, "I'm just gonna do this the next half hour," and doesn't hurry. They're just like they don't care because there's a term here called going postal. We're all very nice to postmen now.
Yeah,
They can do whatever they want. We are all super polite and patient with our post office.
the worst though is when you're in line.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say you're in line. The person in front of you, like they're like twice your age, but it's like the first time they've ever been to a post office, And they take their package off. They don't have anything written on the box. They don't even have a box. And they hand the thing, and the post office is like, no, you need a box, and you need to write the address on there. And they start yelling at the postal clerk, like, why do I need to put it in a box? Why do I need to write an address on it? And then they stand there like doing it.
Yeah, they're trying to mail batteries in gasoline in a Ziploc. They've written the name on the Ziploc.
And then they're like, why do I have to pay for it?
So this is the ad for Dynamo label printers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You drop it off, you leave. Although some people say you can schedule it. This never worked for me, but just dropping it is beautiful. So
I literally go to my post office and I have this is actually going back to David Pepos. This was his idea. I have a laundry cart, like one of the ones that they have at hotels that unfolds, and so it's like a gigantic laundry cart. And so I will fill it with 60, 70, 80 packages, sometimes 120 packages, all done. I go in, I just sort of give the signal to the guys I know, and then they're like happy to take a break. They come out to the side door, they wheel my cart into the back. 3 minutes later, they bring me my cart back, all done.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's so like Ed, like I appreciate that loving touch that you're giving to all of those packages, but at some point it just might be worth your sanity, unless like that's what gets you going or wakes you up.
It's funny actually, because I don't write very much at all. Like I almost never pick up a pencil, right? I'm a project manager. I spend all my day typing emails. I obviously type on my computer. I very seldom pick up and write anything anymore. And I actually quite enjoy the physical sensation of doing it, right? Like I wouldn't want to do it all day, every day, but to do it for 100 odd packages or whatever, especially given that, I try and restrict myself to 20 or so and go over a period of days instead, I actually find it quite pleasurable. Actually, I just don't do it very often. I just find the tactile sense of writing an address. Yeah. I just like it.
Cool. Very cool.
I mean, look, I'm like chiseling.
That said, I wouldn't like to fill out 5 pages of custom forms for every single pack. No.
Because we literally have to list like the weight and the
each individual item.
Each individual item. It has a destination code, like a tax code that you have to put on it that you have to look up.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
No, it ain't great. All right, but we do love our U.S. Postal Service because, I honestly, we joked about it. I've had very, very few packages lost or stolen of the hundreds or thousands of packages I've sent.
Right. I'm not going to name their company because they might come after me. I don't know. But they're a very popular fulfillment service here in the UK for games of all sorts, board games, role-playing games, and so on. I didn't use them for comics. But what happened is suddenly 1/3 of all packages went missing.
Wow.
And then I'm used to like maybe 1 or 2 in 100 go missing. And suddenly I'm like 20, 30 of these went missing. I'm like, pardon? Okay, well, oh no, we didn't get any proof of postage. That takes too long. We're not doing that. I was like, and I'm paying you how much? And you send them second class for that amount of money with no proof of postage, no insurance. Screw you guys.
Yeah,
I'll do it myself. Like seriously. Yeah. And it was just, I was just like, what? How can 20, 30% go missing? Because like you, I don't tend to send things tracked because it's really expensive. And yeah, normally I just have the odd one go missing. I'm like, yeah, don't worry, I got a few spares for sale at convention or whatever. It's fine. I'll send you another one, no problem. I mean, I've got 150 titles, so I've got a few spares of everything, rather than lots and lots and lots of spares of most things. Some things I do, most I don't.
Well, hey, before we go, I do have a quick question for Charlie. I know you've been on the picket line, and I'm how's it going? I mean,
Well,
we're not out there, we're not on the line with you, but we got your backs. So,
well, I've been out there a couple of days. I would like to be more, but I don't know if any of you find this, but sometimes when your job is writer, that also means during the summer your job is childcare when the kids aren't in school. So I don't have now that school has been out, I haven't had the time to be on the picket line as much as I would like. So I have been there. I know today there was a huge influx of people coming out where SAG joined the actors. Joined the writers. I think I'm going to cross my fingers that that's going to help speed things along. I think the United States is in this big labor movement right now because it's not about money. Like it's for anyone who's watching this. It's like, here's the crazy thing. The studios, like the writers came to the studios with a series of requests for the contracts. If the studios had given into, just basically said, okay, we'll give you everything, they would have saved themselves at this point about $500 million. They are losing over $30 to $40 million a day by holding out. And, the same thing is going to get even worse for when the actors, that the actors have joined. And it's more about the principle and that big corporations don't being told what to do.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
As someone across the pond, obviously, I've only heard fairly biased, reporting on this. I'd really like to know what you think it as someone who's been on the picket line. I'd like to hear from you what you think it's about.
Oh, sure. It depends. What's the strike about? The core issue are two things for the writers, and it's two very similar things for the actors. There's lots of little things, but they don't matter. There are two big things that matter. The first thing for the writers and for the actors is, if you go back to 2007, which was the last time the writers went on strike, it was because there was this new thing that was coming out called streaming. And the studios said, hey, let's just do this under this old contract where you get almost nothing for it because streaming is not going to be a big source of our revenue. We're only going to use it for advertising to drive people back to broadcast television. And the writers who had a little bit of foresight said, no, this is going to be a new paradigm shift. And so that's what the strike happened about last time. And unfortunately then the rest of the town, like the actors, the Teamsters, everyone just wanted to get back to work and thought the writers were being greedy because streaming was not a thing then. The strike ended, the writers got a little bit of a residual better than what they were being offered, but still not great. And 1 month later, Hulu came out, which means Hulu had been in negotiation for a year at least with the studios creating these deals. So they were again being disingenuous with their negotiating. That's just context. So what we're at right now is what the writers would like more than anything else. First and foremost is a residual, which, for people who don't know what residuals are, and I'm assuming everyone here does, but it's basically payment that you get when something streams. And how it used to be in broadcast television was every time something aired, you as the creator of the show or the writer of the episode got a little something, right? And so the more times it aired, the more money you got. That doesn't happen in streaming. It's a flat fee, and there's very little residuals. And so if you have a show that's the biggest hit, like Squid Games, I don't know if you watched Squid Games, Ed, or heard about that. And
I didn't, but I heard of it.
You heard of it. So think of anything like the biggest shows. If you wrote a show that was watched by 90 million viewers, you would get, streamed 90 million times, 100 million times. You would get the same amount of money as a show that might have been watched by 2 people. And so it's, and these are the shows that are driving the revenue, that the stocks are going up. So the writers want, and the actors also want this too. They want compensation.
Famously, Scarlett Johansson got hit by the streaming thing, right?
Right. Like everyone's like, people want, basically, they want a fair share, right? Like if you create something, you want a piece of it that's tied to how it does, right? And so like, which is very simple.
Yeah, no, it's not complicated, is it?
Unfortunately, and this is the thing that people don't understand, streaming, a lot of people think that streaming is not profitable at all. And where the revenue is coming from is just from the stock market. And so there has to be a perception of profitability that's associated with it, bringing in new subscribers. So the stock prices keep going up, so the dividends going up, so the companies are making more money. But the actual revenue model that's associated with streaming is not that profitable. And in fact, the numbers might be low. And so the studios, the streamers don't want to give up those numbers because that could actually cost them billions of dollars in stock prices if the truth got out. So like that's where there's the rub. Like either it's really profitable and we want to share in it, or let us know so we stop asking for the money. But if they let us know that, it's going to kill the company. So that's a huge impasse. The other thing is, AI, right? And because that's the next great technology, and the writers and the actors are both trying to set guidelines. And for an example of what the studios offered the actors was, and they called this their groundbreaking offer, they were willing to pay like a background extra for like half a day so they could scan them and use them in the background everywhere and have the rights to their likeness in perpetuity. And like that was their really good offer that they were giving to the actors, because they were saying, we can probably just do it without the actor, but we'll pay you a little something. So we're giving you that offer. We're already at a point with the technology where they could bring in a voiceover actor and have them, do 2 days worth of acting and be able to use them for the next 10 years in a cartoon, right? Yeah. And have the computer modulate the voices. So like it's, and that's just for the actors. Like that's the entire thing. For the writers, it's something different, and it comes down to copyright. And it's like as a writer, like the copyright, the originator of the idea, that's the important thing. And what the studios would like to do is they would like to be able to basically use AI to say, what's a hit movie?
Write it and get the writers to edit it.
Edit it, and by edit it mean make it actually good, right? Like if they have if they have like a 1-page outline for something that they bring a writer in to write, it's a different rate versus if the writer came in, and then the residuals are structured. So basically, like now you're bringing in writers for 2 weeks at a time to write, like to do punch-up work on something versus, this big contract, you have no, credit on it. So like for the studios, it comes down to, and I think a lot of these things, like it's the companies don't think, like big corporations think of themselves as the things that create the cars, right? Or whatever it is, there are workers that use the pieces, but the company makes these things, right? And you have a lot of tech people and other people from other industries who have come into the film industry and invested a lot of money and have that mentality, where the film industry for 100 years was about artists and producers who ended up becoming studio heads, who were all having that shared vision for creating these things. And so now you have the corporations coming in and trying to dictate, art, and don't really like that. Here's an industry where the people are saying no, because there's not many American industries that are unionized that have this kind of strength anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so here's a very articulate group of individuals, and who, a lot of them, like some of them have a lot of money. And when you roll in the actors, you have a huge PR team. And so like, it's actually, if people are working together, like the actors and writers together, that's a really strong group that even if you were a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you should be a little wary about taking on, because you're going to lose the press battle. Like you're going to lose, just the narrative. Like the writers are going to write the narrative, and it's not going to work for you. So at the end of the day,
it's about, on strike, so they aren't going to be writing it for you.
Right. And it's about attrition. And and you even see things like there've been so many bad PR moves already by the studios. And one of the worst came out, I think this was about 3 days before the actors went on strike, so like 5 days ago, where there was some quote from some studio head that said, like they were anticipating the actors were going to sign, and they're like, we're not even going to start engaging with the writers until late in the fall, until we know they've run out of money and some of them have lost their homes. And we figure that at that point, they'll be desperate and willing to take any deal that we give them. Like, this was a studio head that went on record saying this to, like they said it anonymously, but like they put out that, like, and all that did was galvanize the union anymore, because now it's not just about a wage thing. It's very personal, like there, and like, it's not just the writers, right? And it's not just the actors. There's all the people who want to work on these movies who, their livelihood is being affected by it too. And again, if it was about money, this would have been over, before it started, because they could have just said yes to everything. It was, it was basically the writers' proposals came to about $450 million over the course of the contract, which is nothing, right? Like three of the heads of the different studios
maybe to Will.
But like, so it's like, I don't know if it does that.
Nothing relative to what you said they've already lost. So,
it's a drop in the bucket compared to what they're lost, compared to what they're losing going forward. Does that make sense? I mean, do you? It
does. Yeah. No. And thank you for taking the time to explain that. I think it's really important that an audience around the world, because the thing is, right, what we get is corporate media. That's what we get. We get people who are more or less on the side of the corporations explaining this, and they're not giving your side. Now, I am far too far away from this and not anywhere near involved in this industry. I am very, very indie. This aspect of the industry, I should say, I'm very, very indie. And I maybe your view is slightly biased. I can definitely see the problems as a creator. I can definitely see the problems you're talking about. But it's the first time I've heard that side. I've only ever heard the other side, which is they just want more money for everything they're doing, blah blah blah. And obviously, I know as a creator that that's complete horseshit. But I don't know what.
Charlie's in the thick of it, and I am not. One of the salient points that really worked for me is these contracts with the writers specifically are based on per episode for shows. And when a season, you would work for 8 months on a season, and there would be 22 to 26 episodes. The prices paid to these writers were really good, really set you up quite well. And you'd have 3 months to find a new job, and that's great. Whereas in streaming, you work for the same 7 to 8 months, and there's 6 to 10 episodes, and they're paying by episode. So when you really look at, if you're getting the same amount per episode, and you used to get 22 to 26 episodes to work on a series, and now you're getting 6 to 8.
Because here, 6 to 8 is the norm, right? It's uncommon to have many more than 10 episodes in a season. Like, I grew up on Star Trek, right? So, 24, 26 episodes in a season, very, very common. Here, you'll get a season and it'll be like 10 episodes or 12 maybe.
And you're only allowed 2 series, right? John Cleese made that, and no one's allowed to do a 3rd series ever.
Who's had a couple more over the years.
I think the other thing with that, Ed, is that it's not just about the number of episodes. People often are on an exclusive contract, right? So, it's like, and maybe this is probably different because you guys have been doing that for so long, and it's kind of baked in. Like, this was a rapid shift in the way things were done without taking a lot of time to think about how things were changing, right? And so it used to be you'd sign an exclusive contract because they might want you for the 2nd season for a show. But all of a sudden, especially because it's not everyone's paid by episode. Some people are paid by weeks, right? And especially the lower level staff, but you're still on exclusive contract. So rather than working for 50 weeks at, $3,000 a year, which was a decent, very decent salary, maybe now you've worked for 10 weeks. For 10 weeks, $30,000. When you take away the fees, it's almost nothing in LA, right? And now you're under exclusive contract and you're waiting for them to renew this show. You might be stuck.
And you
can't get another job because you're under an exclusive contract. There's a short writer's room. So there's a lot of different dynamics that are at play that they didn't take the time to think about how can we do this better, for this new paradigm, and they're refusing to engage with it being a new admitting that it's a new paradigm because they don't want to go back. Because honestly, like the old broadcast method, which they've killed, for television, was the most lucrative model of entertainment that's ever been created. And it was so smart because you had these upfronts, which were like, we have ads, right? And so like the American shows would have the commercials. So at the beginning of the season, they would sell ad space for all the shows. The more popular shows, the ads would be more expensive, right? And so you would do this and you could produce your shows, and, until those, things evened out, you kept the series going, right? As long as there was enough money coming in. But then we used to have something called syndication, and you probably have it here too. But, like there were little broadcast hubs in every single state. And some states had 3 to 4 of them, or 5, or if it was California, maybe 20, right? Because it's so big. And each of those would go to a thing and be able to bid on the rights to be able to have syndication. And that's all been killed by streaming because, like now Netflix has the rights to air Friends. And
Disney
so like that's one.
Disney hands on to its own stuff, right? No one's bidding for syndication on.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like those syndication reruns were huge for the companies because they would, like they used to call, there's actually a model that's called deficit financing, right? Where you're trying to find the one big thing, the Seinfeld that's going to bring in a couple of $1 billion that will fund 30 different series that you can take a shot on. And so like, that's what they were doing. And they're making money hand over fist, and writers were making money, and actors were making money because when, like they get those licensing fees, everyone would get a piece of the pie, and they didn't reconfigure for the new paradigm. And that's, like what this, like, let's have the conversation.
Well,
let's figure out how to make this
means that
profitable.
the company is hoovering up all the money that is coming in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which
and
obviously the company wants because companies are companies.
Right. But the big problem with this is a product that companies can't make without these people, right? You can't just make another car, keep making cars because they need people. And that's what the other reason why they want to have the AI, because if they could magically get rid of these people, they wouldn't be dependent on the people who are negotiating with them. But they still
my company has recently asked the head of development to look into, can we use AI to write code?
Mm-hmm.
He was talking to me about it, and
no, I saw Terminator. That works great.
Yeah, it's usually brilliant. Yeah, I mean the thing about AI, in my experience, is you got about a 50% chance of something that's fine, and you got about a 50% chance of something that on a cursory glance looks okay and is complete bullshit. Like just makes no sense whatsoever. Well, and that's true in code. It's true in ChatGPT or whatever else.
Well, and here's I listened to, I don't know if there's a podcast called Hard Fork, which is really great, like a tech podcast. I think it came out from the New York Times, and they were talking about like with the ChatGPT and the evolutions of things that are going on. Here's the problem: is that like on the internet now, they were saying like roughly 20% of all the stuff that's on there is now generated by AI, which is kind of crazy to think about. Well, the problem is the new models of ChatGPT are being trained by scraping the internet. Yeah. So they're being trained by AI, and over the course of time, it's a copy of a copy of it's a copy. And as more AI content comes on, it becomes harder for it to find the things, to find out what's good and what's bad. And so like it's watering itself down. And so like that is an inherent problem with AI, is that you need constant input of new sources that's clean, right? And so like that's what I worry about with the coding. I mean, with writing, like that's going to be a real problem.
And I've heard them described. I've heard the current AI described as something like a stochastic parrot and giant copyright infringement machines.
Yeah,
is basically what they are.
I mean the copyright I've got one of my team mostly does logos for me. He's been looking into, can he get like AI art and then build on it and improve it and make it more unique. And the copyright around that stuff just becomes really problematic.
Well, and that's like the thing that the studio should also realize, that they might not own the copyright to the shows and the movies they create if the initial, but it's crazy. And like what the writers, what we were asking for was to put some guidelines in place to basically say, the initial idea can't come from AI, right? That you can use it as, like, find a way that you can use it as a tool, because it's going to be used. But let's just sort of say you can't do this. And the studios were not willing to engage. Their counter proposal was they were willing to have a meeting about this every 1 year to discuss changes in the AI industry. And as we all know, if you have a 5-year contract with no parameters in place, and the only parameter you have is a scheduled conversation, you aren't getting anything, right? So, yeah, that's like that. That's
well, luckily we solved this problem. I think that the contract's going to be signed tomorrow. And it's early in England, is late for me. So I did have a blast listening to this, but it is rude when the host falls asleep on the show. Not because you're boring, because these dogs had me up at 6 a.m. and I've been up all day. I love you guys. Ed, it was great to meet you. Stephen and Charlie, it's always a blast to get to talk to you. And Will, thank you for fixing the computer and getting on the show.
I try, man. I try.
All right. I guess, guys, support your writers, support your actors, and
support your Kickstarters.
Yeah, I was about to say Monster Matador, Lobo. I slept my way through college in the Tales from freshman year.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. If you want ScarJo to sleep better, make sure and back every Kickstarter campaign for comics you see, and have a wonderful week. Good night, everybody.
Good night,